DAS players or providers, part 2. I'll start with the materials providers. Materials in this case is basically the passive materials. Here is a list of manufacturers for general DAS materials. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. I'm only showing the materials type that are most commonly or frequently used. For example, for coaxial cable, we have CommScope and RFS among many other companies. When it comes to coax connectors, JMA is very dominant these days. CommScope and RFS also had been manufacturing connectors for many years. Corning is a very common name for fiber optic cable and connectors. Galtronics antennas have become popular in recent years, whereas CommScope had been producing antennas for many years. As you can see with multiple manufacturers, you will have many options for a specific material. So for example, combiners and splitters or couplers, you have a variety of companies like CommScope, Ventev, Microlab, etc. In that group. You may be thinking, do we need to go to multiple manufacturers to procure these materials? Answer is no. You can go to one of several suppliers like Tesco, Tally, Hutton, Annixter, Graybar to shop multiple items. Most of the vendors you will work with should have established relationship with most of these suppliers. When we discussed 5 different DAS deployment phases, we mentioned survey and engineering, construction, commissioning, integration, closeout package, and maintenance. No one hires a separate vendor for closeout package, but you can pick separate vendors for the 4 other phases, namely survey and engineering, construction, commissioning and integration, and maintenance vendor. There are quite a few vendors in the industry who can offer all of these services, and they are commonly known as DAS integrators. Let's start with survey and engineering vendors, also known in the industry as design vendor. As discussed before, design engineers provide benchmark testing and design for the DAS. We also discussed the deliverables you can expect from the design engineers. DAS OEMs can also provide design services. However, they will only design a DAS with their own electronics. Few smaller firms are available who provide dedicated design services. Next, construction vendor. There are 2 types of construction vendors: low voltage vendor for cable installation and equipment installer, which can be the DAS integrated themselves. Low voltage vendors, traditionally most low voltage vendors install Cat5 or fiber in the buildings for the IT department or facilities. Most large buildings or companies have their preferred low voltage vendors. Often these vendors can provide installation services of the passive materials needed for DAS. Most low voltage vendors we work with know how to do all the tests needed to do during the installation of passive materials: cable sweep, PIM test, OTDR, and optical loss test. Since they're local and know the building intimately, they can often do the passive materials installation at a cheaper rate than integrators who will have to bring their installers from out of market. It's quite common to have well-known DAS integrator to survey, design, install electronics, commission and integration, and have the low voltage vendor to do the cable, which is basically fiber and coax installation. Equipment installer, on the other hand, this involves installation of DAS and signal source electronics. Most DAS integrators are capable of installing just DAS electronics. Sometimes we'll have the low voltage vendors place the electronics, and then integrator will make all the internal connections. Next, commissioning and integration vendors. Most, if not all, integrators provide this service. Original equipment manufacturers or OEMs also have resources who can provide this service. Let's move on to maintenance vendors. We have provided a brief overview of DAS maintenance earlier in the course, so we don't want to get into great details here. Briefly, maintenance vendors can set up remote monitoring to monitor the DAS via Network Operating Center, or commonly known as NOC. Vendor troubleshoots the DAS when there is service interruption. Again, it's quite common for DAS integrators to provide DAS monitoring service, and if they don't offer the service, they can refer you to a one. Basically, DAS integrators can be they can basically be a one-stop shop. Uh, as for names of different DAS integrators, there are quite a few available in the market. For example, On Air Solutions had been building DAS for over 15 years, which I co-founded. Let's move to build-to-suit companies. Build-to-suit companies designs, builds, maintains, and owns DAS. Note that the acronym BTS is also used for base transceiver station or base station. In this case, however, it's used for build-to-suit companies. Majority DAS built by BTS are multi-carrier. They are known to build both indoor or IDAS and outdoor or ODAS. Carriers must pay capital cost to add signal source to the DAS. Carriers also have to pay a monthly rental. Building owner or management companies sign agreement with the BTS company or build to suit companies. There may or may not be any revenue sharing. DAS for public venues such as malls, stadiums, big casinos, hotels, resorts are common BTS owned DAS. Let me stress the public venues part because for the return on investment model or ROI to work for BTS companies, they will usually select large areas with high traffic. Some of the big, well known names in this space are American Tower, Black Box Network Services, which acquired another BTS company, Inner Wireless, in 2012. Crown Castle, old tower built to suit company, now plays a significant role in DAS. XTNet Systems, they're quite new but very aggressively building a lot of DAS, multi-carrier DAS. Insight Wireless and Mobility. These are just to name a few, and these are all organized in alphabetical order.